So the Canon R7 has been getting a lot of headlines as being a really good camera for wildlife photography. And today I want to discuss with you just 4 reasons as to why the Canon R7 looks to be a perfect wildlife photographer's camera. The first up being the Eye Autofocus system, which is inherited from the R3. So straight up there, you're getting a state-of-the-art autofocus system from a body which costs almost $6,000. That to me is nuts that Canon has decided to put in one of the best features of their flagship camera in one of the cheapest bodies that they are producing right now within the R series cameras. I mean, this AF system is super sharp and super fast, specifically for animals and birds, as well as humans and vehicles. So obviously this AF system will really help when it comes to capturing those moments in wildlife photography. And the Canon R7 has a 32.5 megapixel APSC sensor that provides a 1.6 greater reach than the full frame sensors out there. So with the crop factor there, you'll be able to get extreme close-ups with cheaper glass. For example here, an 800mm lens will be converted into something like a 1280mm lens, thereabouts. So this obviously will be perfect for wildlife photography and specifically bird photography. And also, just like the predecessor, the 7D Mark II, they also came out with an APS-C sensor in this DSLR camera at a time when all the DSLRs were moving towards full frame sensors. So again, it just goes to show that sometimes a smaller sensor isn't a bad thing. And also the R7 can shoot fast, and I mean like really fast. 15 frames per second mechanical shutter and 30 frames per second with electronical shutter. That is crazy fast. Now there are drawbacks, which comes in the form of jelly effect, as the sensor can't read all that information so quickly. So you do need to keep that in mind when it comes to shooting quick subjects, such as animals and birds, but that's the only real negative that I can see from this camera so far. And finally, we have the price. This camera, the R7, is coming in at $1,499, which is not bad considering the competition out there, such as the R5 and the R3. They're coming in way more expensive, and this camera does hold some technology from those cameras. So you are getting the specs from the R3 and the R5 in a cheaper body, which is not bad at all. It's a bold move from Canon, and we'll have to see if it pays off when the camera gets released. So that's why I think the R7 is going to be a killer wildlife photography camera. But what are the requirements for a wildlife photographer? Well, it's pretty much everything we've talked about already. It's having good autofocus points, having good shutter speed, having a good enough sensor to capture the image that you want, and having low light capabilities. I'm not 100% sure on the low light capabilities of the R7, but I do know that the AF system does use a dual pixel CMOS AF2, which means that each pixel is split into 2 to enable on-sensor phase detection. In layman's terms, this means that the camera is really good at autofocus in low light environments. And with getting such a cheap body, hopefully you have more money left over to get better glass. And if you want a cheap setup for wildlife photography glass, I would probably grab the Canon RF 100-400. You can grab this lens roughly for around $650 at this moment of time. So with the R7 and the 100-400 lens, you're looking at something around $2,100. Which is still quite pricey, but also looks to be a really good setup when it comes to wildlife photography. But I want to know your thoughts on this setup. I'm not a wildlife photographer myself personally, I'm more of a studio photographer. So let me know your budget-friendly photography setups down below. So that's it for me today. I'm gonna go explore the woods and shoot some birds on the 7D Mark II. Let's go. Wish me luck. See you next time.